Packet Nation, welcome back to the channel. So in this DNS series, we're covering all things DNS from our first query from a client all the way through the back end, how DNS is secured, TCP, UDP, all the things. So in this example, what we're going to do is look at when a request goes to that recursive server, what happens next on the back end? How does that recursive server fully look up a domain name? Remember why this is important, because DNS is hierarchical. There's not a single server anywhere in the world that owns all of those domains or knows about all those domains from the name to the IP. So we can't go to a single server to get it. Instead, a recursive server is going to look at several different other machines to help it to fully resolve that name that we're looking for. Right, so just to show you how this system works a little bit, we got our client and it goes to its recursive name server. Now for you and I, a lot of times that's either, if we're at home, it could be our local gateway, or it could be a very simple system that we have in our lab environment. That box doesn't have every lookup known to man. Instead, it's got to do some of that backend query for us. So we send our request to it, say example.com. We say, hey, if you don't have this in cache, look it up for me. If you do have it in cache, go ahead and hit me back with the IP address. But if you don't, do your thing. Well, the first thing that that server does is it has a baked in list of root servers that it already knows about. So it's going to say, you know what? I don't know nothing. I'm going to go ahead and talk to that server. Let's just assume that this recursive name server had 0 things in cache. It just woke up from a nap and it's got to look up this whole chain. Okay, so we send example.com out to a root name server. Now, those root name servers, there's only 13 names that it knows to go to. Now, not necessarily 13 boxes or individual servers. There's hundreds of root name servers, but there's only name connections to 13 of those. Now I'll talk about what that means when we get into our packets. So anyway, so go to a root name server. Hey, give me example.com. It comes back and it goes, you know what? I don't know about no example. I've never really heard of that domain before. I'm not the person for that. But what I do know is I do know who the top level domain server is, or list of these top level domain servers for the com domain. All right, so go ahead and talk to these ones and they'll steer you even further. Okay, so recursive name server says, great, wonderful. I'm then going to send my request to it. I'm going to say, hey, what do you know about example.com? Well, its job is not to know of every domain under the sun either. So it hits me back and it says, you know what? I'm the top level domain, but I'm not the authoritative name server for the domain that you're looking for. So it's going to hit me back and say, you know what? Here's the authoritative name server. Go ahead and talk to it. It's going to be the one that's actually going to have that A record you're looking for, whatever record it is. That authoritative name server kicks me back the IP address, and then that IP address is eventually forwarded on to the client. Now, this diagram that we just went through, it's pretty simplistic. A lot of this happens without our field of view because a lot of us are down here at the client. We're just seeing what happens between us and the recursive name server. That's why a lot of times in Wireshark, when you capture a DNS resolution, you're just seeing a request go to your recursor and it comes back with an address. So you just see those two packets. A lot of times you don't see what's going on behind back here with all of these conversations. And even your recursive name server, a lot of times your local box could be your gateway, your ear device, whatever. It could be that it's just a forwarder. It's sending to this name server in your ISP, and that's the one that actually does this backend work. So unless you're in the world of DNS, some of these conversations you might not ever see, but it's really important to understand how it works. So, you know me, let's get into the packets. All right, packet people, you know what to do. Down in the description down below, I've got the PCAP. You can follow along with me. This one's called a DNS full recursion. I named it that just so we could see what goes on in that back end. All right, let's do it. So here we have this first packet that comes, which, by the way, quick tangent, everybody, there's a ton to unpack here. I could spend many lessons just on this packet capture. So you're going to have questions, and that's okay. What would you like to see about this packet capture that I had to fly over in more detail? Go ahead and comment that down below. But also comment, is this interesting? Do you like this stuff? Are you nerding out with me? All right, so that first question. This is our end client requesting from its local recursive server. Let's take a look at that. I'm going to expand this out, going to go down to queries. We are looking for Infoblox.com, which, by the way, real quick, shout out to Infoblox.com. I very much appreciate your support. They have been awesome in helping me to put this series together. You're going to see a lot more stuff that involves them, including this packet capture. So just a quick shout out to Infoblox. Appreciate you guys. All right, let's get back to it. So b2b.infoblox.com, that's the lookup I want. And the type, I want a host address. I want an IPv4 address. Let's go down to additional records. If we just expand this out, UDP payload size, that's where I'm saying, hey, don't send me anything bigger than that. If you do, then I got to go to TCP. Hopefully you saw that in my last video. If you didn't, click up here. All right, so we send that off. And the next packet down, this is from that same server. It's got IPv4 talking to the client. But then when it goes out the next hop, it's coming out IPv6. And here is where it talks to 12D0D. So who's it talking to? Let's go ahead and take a look at packet 2, which let me back up just for a minute. If you take a look at packet 1, I love this about Wireshark. You see the request for 1, and you see these dotted lines over here, comes all the way down, and it pairs up to packet 31. So the response in packet 31 is for the request that went out in packet 1. All this extra stuff happens on the back end to enable DNS to do what it does. Okay, so now we're going out. We're saying, go ahead and give me the stuff. And I'm just going to collapse this just a little bit, everybody. All right, in fact, you know what I'm going to do? Want to have a little bit of fun? Let's do this. I'm going to come up here, Wireshark Preferences, and I'm going to come in here to Name Resolution, and I'm going to say, resolve network IP address, use captured DNS packet data for name resolution. This isn't my preferences. I'm going to say OK. So then I can see the root servers, and I can see anything else that was actually resolved within this packet capture. Also, just for me, I'm going to take packet 2, right click here, and edit resolve name. I do this a lot when I'm on IPv6, just because there's so many numbers to stare at. I'm just going to say resolver. Okay, enter. Now I can see the resolver and the server that it was talking to without seeing all those addresses. Isn't that cool? Play that back slow if you missed it. Okay, so coming in here. So here's my first request. Resolver, I go out, I'm just looking at infoblox.com. All right, so if I come into packet 2, resolver, G root servers. So this is my query. I'm sending it out to that root server, additional records. Now check out my UDP payload size, 512. Okay, this is from the resolver back to that root server. It's kind of interesting, and it does accept DNS security, RRRs. So that might look familiar from a previous video that we had. There's my question that I sent out to that root. Now, while I'm talking to that server, one other thing that I do that is kind of interesting. This is a little bit benign, but let's talk about it. So I'm just doing a full root lookup. Authoritative name server. Hey, root server, while I'm talking to you, do I have the latest stuff for you? Do I have g.rootservers.net correct? Because my resolver is going off of a list that it already has locally. Recursive servers, what they're going to do is they know who the root servers are in those IPs. What this system is doing is it's just validating that. Like, hey, go ahead and give me the latest and greatest. Have you changed? Is G somewhere else? Are you on a different IP now? Who should I talk to? So it's just validating its own information. All right, so the first packet that comes back is a response for that first root servers. But check this out. Go to packet 4, and what do we find? I'm just expanding the flags. Truncated. Whoa. Root server came back and said, sorry, the response that I have for you, everything that I got to say is way more than UDP can handle. I'm going to have to kick this over to TCP. All right. In fact, I'm not even going to start sending you stuff because I have so much to say. How about packet 5? Same thing. That root server is coming back saying, hey, you want some stuff on Infoblox, and I got a lot to say, and I'm going to blast through this limit that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and have to kick this over to TCP. So the resolver gets the hint, says, cool, no worries, I don't want to break the rules of these sizing. So let's go ahead and go to packet 6. This is where we kick off 2 TCP SYNs to that DNS resolver. So the first one, kick this off. This is just a regular SYN SYN ACK ACK. This is just a TCP handshake. In fact, I just do that check-in to make sure I've got the latest stuff on the root. In fact, this is a good time for a filter. So I'm just going to do this. Let me just right click this. I'm just going to say conversation filter. I'm going to say TCP because I want to. And I'm going to come down here. So here's my request and here's my response. And then I have my fins and stuff. So if I come down to packet 15, this is where the goods are. This is the response. This is no longer truncated. Hey, you just wanted to know what's up with the latest root servers and so on. And it's interesting because this response comes back and it gives you the names of all the root servers. Now, this is historical DNS, but basically those root servers, those names haven't changed in a very long time. And they're also short. They're just a letter because one reason for that is if you have all 13 of them, you can still get under the 512 byte limitation of a DNS response. But if those names were any longer, then we would actually break that datagram size and then we'd be in trouble. So anyway, that's one just history lesson for the advanced folks in the room. But that's why these are just letters. Okay, so A, B, C, D, and so on. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just updating and refreshing this resolver. Like, hey, check this out. Here's the IPv4 for M, L. Here's its IPv4 address. Here's all the latest addressing for these root servers. And not only IPv4, let's go ahead and get it for v6 as well. So, hey, resolver, go ahead and update yourself. This is what I got. Or rather, just so you are aware, these are the latest and greatest IPs, so you can be aware of that. Okay, so this is great information, but it's a little messy when it comes to my PCAP. So here's what I'm going to do. Watch this. Take packet 6. Boom. Okay. I'm going to go to packet 6, and I'm actually going to say, let's go ahead and remove no TCP port, and I'm going to put the ephemeral port in here. So 44653. You see that right there, the one that the client uses? So what that will do is it'll remove that from my field of view. So now I don't really want to see that one. I'm cool with it. That's just the resolver updating itself. I want to get to this one, packet 7. So here's our SYN-SYN-ACK, do our handshake. Then we do a request. What we're doing for the root, we're saying, hey, give me infoblox.com. This is what we want to get to. So down in the DNS information, here's our request, infoblox.com. Give me that A record. And here's my UDP payload size. Got to keep it under 1220. Server says, thank you. TCP does its thing, right? Now we're TCP. Now it's acking. Server comes back and says, all right, here's your stuff, not truncated. Here you go. All right, so here's our queries. Our query is Infoblox, and this is where we get some interesting stuff. So the root server says, great, you're asking for a .com domain. I don't care about all that B2B Infoblox nonsense, all that stuff I don't care about. I'm just looking at that front part, so .com. You want to know who to talk to, who knows more about .com? You got to talk to these top-level domain servers. So here's E, you got to talk to L, you got to talk to K, here's a bunch of them, H. You don't have to talk to all of them. Here's all of your options. So here's the actual names themselves. And following this, just after this, you're going to see another, don't worry about that right now. That's DNSSEC, okay. All right, additional records. Additional records. So here's all the names, but now I'm going to actually give you the IP addresses to then go talk to. So here's your v4 address. Here's the v4 addresses for those TLD servers. And if I expand down a little further, I'm also going to give you the quad A records. All right, so this client, or the resolver, I should say, is using v6. So it's going to want to use one of these down here. Now, at random, it's going to pick one of them. Over time, the way it depends on the DNS, but it could also prefer one of those TLDs as it learns about response time and such. But at the very beginning, it's just going to pick one at random. If I just peek up here, you see how the one that I pick is... If I come down, I actually end up picking, look at packet 21. This is GTLD. So here, if I just come down here and there's H, there it is. So right here, if you come down all the way, go ahead and follow me. I'm in packet 19. This is the response from the root server. It's telling me, hey, GTLDservers.net, that top level domain server that you got to go to next, here's the address, EEA330. So my resolver goes, cool. Let me go talk to that one. All right, so the resolver acts it. It says thanks, but look at packet 21. This is where I get to this next step, okay? And in fact, this is where I'm going to say by the time I'm in packet 21, I'm kind of done with this TCP stuff. So I'm just going to say no TCP for right now. Okay, good. All right, so that stuff's out of the way. Okay, so packet 19, that was over TCP. I selected the top level domain G. So resolver says, okay, top level domain, let me talk to you next. This is over UDP. And here's my same request, infoblox.com. Give me an A record. I'm limited to 512, so watch out for that. Server comes back 7 milliseconds later. This is the top level domain. It says, I see your infoblox.com. Now, I'm not the one that knows about Infoblox. I know about .com, but I don't know about Infoblox. So I'm actually going to get you over to the authoritative name server that keeps things fresh, keeps things updated. That's the one that you want to talk to. So it then gives us a record for that next step. You've got NS5 infoblox.com, NS6 infoblox.com, NS7, NS1, and if I look down at some of these additional records down here, that's where I can actually see the addresses for those different resolvers or those different servers. So I choose NS5 and check out down here, NS5. This is the full address for that authoritative name server that knows the end answer. That's the one that's constantly updated. TLD is like, look, I just know about .com. I can just send you over to that guy. He's the one that knows. All right, next, packet 24. I go to the next step. Now I'm at that final step, the authoritative name server. I reach out, say, hey, I'm told to talk to you. Still limited to that 512. Go ahead and send me DNSSEC if you'd like to. Packet 30 comes back and check us out. This is where we have our actual answer resource records. Finally, we're no longer looking for the guy that knows the answer. We finally got him. So now queries, infoblox.com, answers. There's your IP. So 839.143.138. Don't worry about the rest of this stuff for today. Then the resolver turns around and says, okay, finally, this is the response. This was the request that you had, end client, infoblox.com, and here's that A record. There's the IP address that you were asking for, 839.143.138. Now have at it. Go issue that TCP connection, do that ping, do whatever it is you wanted to do. That is the address that you were looking for. So a lot of steps on the back end, isn't it? DNS is super interesting. I love to see all of this in action. So we go to the root, we go to the top level domain, we go to an authoritative name server. Now, this, like we mentioned, is often blind to the end user. They don't see a lot of this on the back end, but isn't it interesting how much goes on back there? This is another reason why we don't want to block TCP in these DNS environments. That can get us into trouble because if a record is larger than the payload will allow, the resolver has to use TCP to get that across. So be careful, really selective about blocking TCP. In fact, that's just not a good practice. DNS is not just over UDP. All right, so there's your full recursive lookup. Go ahead and watch this video again if you have to. Thanks again to Infoblox for sending me this packet capture. It really shows us that full chain. But now where do we go from here? Next, security. Not just securing the data itself, securing the protocol. How is that being done today? What are the ramifications? And what should we really understand between DNSSEC, DNS over TLS, even DNS over HTTPS? That's going to be for our next video. Thanks for stopping by, Packet People.